I'm Laura, 29 years old. My husband is Richard, 30 years old. We chose to live with his parents because Richard often said, "I'm the eldest son, and I want to give back to my parents someday." Richard's parents are very kind. They have strong, consistent values that I deeply respect. I thought to myself, if we have kids in the future, it would be beneficial for them to learn about society by being around their grandparents. So, I was in favor of living together. However, there was one catch in this perfect in-law setup. They had an unmarried daughter living at home. Her name is Melissa, 26 years old. The first time I met her when I went to announce our engagement, she remarked, "Oh, so you're the latest addition to the family, huh? Such a sassy younger sister-in-law." My first impression of my SIL was terrible. She probably didn't like the fact that her parents approved of me, but either way, she had a bad attitude. A few weeks after moving in, one day, as I was serving food to everyone at their respective places, my SIL shouted in disapproval. What? I was taken aback by her sudden outburst. "You placed the food at your seat first, duh." Food. It was so unexpected that I was momentarily speechless. "You're the newest member here, right? Why'd you serve yourself first?" Well, my seat was closest to the kitchen. "I can't believe it. You served yourself before me." I was stunned to see her make such a big deal out of such a small thing. Seeing this, my husband intervened. "If you're going to talk about order and hierarchy, shouldn't you be showing more respect to my older sister-in-law? I mean, I don't want to get into it, but if you're talking about seniority, you should respect the wife of the eldest son, right? I'd prefer if we all just got along." "What? Are you joking? She's just another woman from outside the family. She's not particularly attractive and deserves to be treated accordingly." Melissa snapped back at Richard. This made Richard furious. "What did you say?" Feeling that a sibling fight was about to erupt, I stepped in and calmed Richard down. "Richard, it's okay, thank you." Then I told my SIL, "I'm sorry, next time, I'll serve your portion first." I had my reasons for saying this. There's no good in having family arguments. The main reason is that we have to live together for a long time. Another reason is that I heard from Richard that Melissa is currently seeing someone and is probably getting married soon. Once she moves out, our relationship will likely change. It seemed too tedious to get into arguments until then. However, Melissa's condescending attitude towards me did not end there. When I returned home, she'd order me, "Get me a drink." "Huh, what do you want?" I'd ask. "Just get me something," she'd retort. I'd serve her tea, only for her to start with, "I wanted coffee." "Make it again." "Well, you could have said that from the start." She'd snap back, sounding frustrated. "What? Can't you even pick up on that? That makes me concerned. You should at least know the preferences of those above you." Do I really have to spell it out? Then, I'd hear her say with a tisk, "Such a useless maid." Looking back, I think that was the first time she called me a maid. Her condescending attitude and treating me like hired help only increased from there. However, I had a hunch that she wouldn't act out when her father and mother were around. She probably felt guilty, knowing she'd get scolded. I considered talking to her parents about it, but I felt they probably wouldn't want to hear anything negative about their own daughter. To avoid any unjust treatment, I naturally tried to be around when her parents were present. Then, one night, it happened. Past midnight, she came home completely drunk. By then, her parents had long gone to bed. I had already been asleep too, but she woke me up, complaining, "Why are you in bed before me?" More than the rude awakening, I was worried as she was stumbling drunk and could get hurt. So, I half carried her to the living room. Collapsing onto the sofa, she slurred, "Today, I quit my job. It was my farewell party." "I see, I'm sure everyone will miss you at work." "Well, I guess I'll be going now," I started to say, but she continued. "And he graduated from New York University. Impressive, right? And he works for this major bank. Sorry if these details sound cliché. He wants to be with me so much that he asked me to quit my job. I'm gonna be a full-time housewife when we marry, but it's different from your situation. Just the two of us. Not depending on my parents and cutting corners in life for a child we're not sure when will come." Unlike your bland mushroom soup, which sounds like food for the po, we can afford to order food from any restaurant on Uber Eats every day. That's the difference between us. I'm not like you, plain-faced maid. Hey, get me some water, maid. Maid. You woke me up in the middle of the night to say that. I muttered under my breath. Seems my annoyance showed on my face. When my sister-in-law, probably emboldened by a few drinks, fixed me with a sharp glare. She stared me down with those eyes. What's with that look? Are you defying me? 'Cause you are just a maid, right? Living off my parents. It's only fitting to call you that. Ahahaga. Maid, maid. She kept repeating the word maid with drunken laughter. I wanted to splash the glass of water on her face, but I held back. I was proud of myself. For my unborn baby to learn about social manners. Because my husband wants to take care of his parents. They're good people, and I wanted to help too. That's why I chose to live together. And yet, to be looked down upon as a maid. I started cleaning to distract myself, but the frustration lingered. I sighed, gripping the vacuum tighter. As I began to clean around the computer. What's this? It looked like my sister-in-law was making wedding invitations, as there was a test print on the table. I took a closer peek. There was a name on it. Wait, I know this guy. Looking at it made me think. I might have a chance to put my arrogant, good-for-nothing SIL in her place. With this, I could spare my family any unpleasantness. A thrill ran through me. On the day my SIL brought her boyfriend home, I had just cleaned the balcony and garage and returned to the house. Just as I got back inside, my SIL, in a huff, came into the kitchen. Hey. Took you long enough. Checking the clock, it was only 10 minutes past when we agreed to meet. It was 10 minutes ago, but it seemed her guest had already arrived. Why would you clean the balcony right before this? Seriously, you lack common sense. Be of some help for once. Hurry up and serve the tea, you maid, she nagged. I purposely echoed back, maid. How many times do I have to tell you? You're basically the maid. I've been saying this since you arrived. Always at the bottom, and you never catch a hint. If you were a real maid, I wouldn't have renewed your contract. My echoing infuriated her, and her voice rose in volume. Perfect. With her volume, anyone in the living room would surely hear. I smirked to myself. Feigning innocence, I went to serve the tea. There he was. Michael. I called out to him. Just as I suspected. I had a hunch seeing the name, and sure enough, there he was. My sister's fiancé looked up. Huh. Laura. Michael, her fiancé, called my name in surprise. You haven't changed at all. Still as thin as ever. I said, smiling at Michael. What? Wait. You two are acquaintances. My SIL, looking stunned, kept turning her head between the two of us while raising her voice. More than acquaintances. I felt my heart race. Laura, she was my first love, he said. At these words, my SIL's face went pale, and she almost collapsed into a chair. No way. You were engaged to this woman. You were just a second-hand product. The word second-hand didn't escape my ears. People who usually belittle others tend to slip up. I made sure to pick up on it and repeated it for emphasis. He said at the same time, I heard you mention maid in the kitchen earlier. My SIL turned pale. No, that's not. What's not? What's different? Now's the time to push on once she was off guard. My sister-in-law, flustered, started to fib. Well, it was just a joke between us, right? You know how we joke around. I won't let this go. Complaining about the order of the being served at the table is a joke. If that's a joke, it's in bad taste. Always calling me plain Jane as a joke. If so, that's also a very po-taste joke. I don't recall agreeing to such a game. I blocked her escape route. He also chimed in, calling me second-hand like I was from a thrift store. Is that kind of joke? That's in pretty bad taste too. I think even I would be offended being called second-hand. This was indeed a coincidence. More importantly, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get back at this sister-in-law who had made my life miserable. It truly felt like a miracle bestowed by the heavens. I won't let this chance slip away. So, shall we share some memories of being called second-hand and maid? I approached my sister-in-law. Slowly. making her feel the pressure. "Laura," he began as he settled back into the couch. As I placed down the tea, he said, "Thank you." I met Laura in high school. I was on the basketball team, and she was the captain of the girls' basketball team. She would often encourage me when I was in a slump. She told me that recognizing what's wrong in a slump is halfway to solving it. Then, it's all about improvement. She always had positive words for me, even praising the little things like the trajectory of my shots. I'll always remember her saying, "Life isn't a tournament where defeat ends at all, but a league where you alternate between wins and losses." Even a sports drink she'd occasionally give me, asking "You okay?" meant the world to me. I confess I had a small crush on her, and even asked her out. Well, it didn't work out. Laura was quite popular. He chuckled. Now I'm being called a plain Jane and a maid. I seized the moment. Hearing that was a shock to me. Being compared to a second-hand product hurt too, he said expressionlessly. He continued. After I asked Laura out in the summer and got rejected, she still gave me drinks and treated me the same. I guess Laura was being considerate. So, my first love was a bit bitter but mostly sweet. Then he looked straight at my sister-in-law. Calling Laura maid and me second-hand, I now understand the kind of person you are. I can't see us continuing this relationship. My SIL was now ghostly pale. She began to sob to him about her circumstances. I'm in a tight spot now. I even quit my job. Job? You quit? He looked puzzled. Maintaining his stern expression, he said, I didn't ask you to. I blurted out, what? This was unexpected. So she quit her job of her own accord. This was my chance. I quickly retorted. Didn't she gush about how you said you wanted to be together forever? So without you even knowing, she was talking about how with your earnings she could order takeout every day, living a lavish lifestyle. I spilled the beans. Why? She probably wasn't expecting to be told that. My sister-in-law's eyes rolled back. You didn't have to say all that to Michael. She started rambling. I just chuckled. Of course I'd say it. After all, I know Michael. It's like watching everything unfold in a reality TV show. Except I heard everything in person. Your long-winded remarks, that is. Michael held his head in his hands. I never told you to quit your job. I mean, I didn't say to continue either. Huh. If you graduated from a college like NYU and work at a major bank like JP Morgan, we'll be just fine. She snapped back. But it was now just making things worse. Michael sighed. Then he shrugged. Listen, did you decide to marry me because of my university and my job? Normally, you wouldn't think of marrying someone who calls you second-hand, right? From his words, it was clear that Michael was leaning towards breaking off the engagement. My sister-in-law, probably wanting to avoid that, became increasingly frantic. She started making excuses that weren't really good ones. Look, calling you second-hand can't be helped. It's a stain on your past, sure, but while we can't erase the past, we can create a future. Michael's words grew harsher in response to her defensiveness. I told you, I don't see it as a stain. In fact, I said it was a good memory. Are you even listening? The conversation started to fall apart. Even just listening from the side, I could tell that, maybe due to her agitation, my sister-in-law's points were way off the mark. And my increasingly flustered sister-in-law began to blurt out nonsensical words. Seriously? So, how are you going to take responsibility for me quitting my job? Are you going to pay me damages and support me with that money or something? If that's the case, we might as well get married. Come on, marry me. Right now. Right this instant. My sister-in-law grabbed Michael by the collar and started yelling. I never asked you to quit. Michael began. Did you really quit of your own accord? A trembling voice interrupted. Turning to the source of the voice, there stood my mother-in-law. I heard voices from downstairs, so I thought Michael was here. When I came down, I saw the two of you arguing loudly. I was waiting for a moment to step in, but what I heard was so unbelievable that I just froze. Mymel had a grim look on her face. Behind her, my father-in-law stood imposingly. And even further behind, my husband was trembling. I really am sorry for what happened, Michael, my Phil said. My apologies to Michael too, but the one who's really been wronged is Laura. My Mill was on the verge of tears. Why did you hurl such harsh words like maid at Laura, who's always been so kind to us? She did everything out of goodwill, and you belittled her. Apologize now, Mom. Laura is. My husband spoke with a hoarse voice. Laura didn't want you to hear bad things about your own daughter. She endured it all on her own. I knew about it. But I'm sorry, Laura. I wasn't aware you were being called a maid recently. Apologize now. My Mill slapped my sister-in-laws on the face. Reluctantly, gritting her teeth, and glaring at me, my sister-in-law managed to choke out, I'm sorry. However, Michael said coldly, you don't have to apologize to me. I'd like you to apologize to Laura, and hope you never treat her this way again. I don't want to see my first love cry. But I don't need your apology. I feel bad for your parents, but it was a good opportunity to see what kind of person you are before marriage. Let's forget this ever happened. He then told my tearful sister-in-law, if you have a problem with second-hand, then you should have stayed away from me. What? I quit my job for you. What are you going to do about it? She screamed. As I said, I never asked you to quit. Michael replied as he got ready to leave, apologizing once more to my Mill and Phil. At least make it look like I dumped you. My sister-in-law yelled again. Enough is enough. My Phil also slapped my sister-in-laws on the face. Michael, thank you for coming today. I hope you'll find a wonderful person next time, he said, gently patting Michael's shoulder. After that, my sister-in-law was kicked out of the house. Laura, I'm so sorry for everything, my Mill said, apologizing even though she hadn't done anything wrong. We truly appreciate everything you've done for us. I married into this family because I really like you and Father. I want to be with you always. Forever, I said, holding my Mill's hand. My in-laws disowned my sister-in-law, vowing not to let her near me again. Months later, my sister-in-law sent an email to my husband asking for financial help, saying I can't find a job and can't pay my rent, but my husband blocked her in front of me. Several years later, I heard Michael got married. We started to keep in touch again ever since the incident with my sister-in-law. He had told us he married a co-worker. By then, I had given birth to our first child. When we have our own kids, I'd like parenting advice from you, Michael said. Yay, our child is so lucky to have grandparents who adore her, I replied. We want our child to be loved and to know love. We named our child Amy, which means beloved.